Okay, welcome back to another pre-modern game. This is going to be myself and Nicholas. So I am going to be on Ankh, and Nicholas is on Red White Slide. I do believe I have won the roll, and we are deciding which piles to put on top for who for how we're going to cut these decks. So looks like the middle is going to go on top. We're going to fast forward a minute, doing a little bit of shuffling. I do believe I put back that first seven. Here's the middle on top again. And I'm going to take a look at my first hand to see how this is going to go. And knowing I'm against a red-white slide, this should be a pretty decent matchup. They shouldn't, at least pre-board, have too much against Anktide in terms of enchantment or artifact removal. They're mainly against these aggressive decks, such as white weenie decks, goblins, and so forth. It looks like I was actually on the draw, but here comes a black vice, so he's going to take some damage. He only has 6 cards in hand, so at the beginning of his upkeep, he'll take 2. And we see him go down to 18. He's going to take a draw. Hopefully he doesn't have a Lightning Rift on turn 2. It doesn't look like it, so I'm going to take a draw as well. And here comes another island, and there is the namesake card, well, the first one, and the Ankh. So whenever a player plays a land, they're going to take 2 damage. And so I pass the turn back to him. We see a Renewed Faith, and that lets him gain 2 life. He's going to take a draw. He is cycling it, so he's not going to actually be paying it. And he continues on. Let's see what he has to do. So right now, what I'm trying to set up is either a Parallax Tide, so trying to knock him out all at once. Usually 5 lands, comes back into play, deals them 10 damage. That Black Vice slowly ticking at him. Looks like he's down to 16 right now. I take a draw. Here comes a Port, and that's going to constrain his mana even more. As we know, they have Exalted Angels, so that's one of the main cards I'm worried about. Here comes a Hoodwink. That allows me to return a artifact, enchantment, or land at instant speed back to his hand, and I bounce his red source, hopefully setting him back a turn, and then also increasing that that Black Vice clock. I think I just returned a mountain at that point. Bouncing some of his tap lands can also be good, setting him back a turn, though he can just cycle them again if he actually does draw some of the lands. During its upkeep, he's going to take some more damage again. He's down to 13, so he does have 7 cards in hand, so the plan is going accordingly. And here comes that land. He should take 2 more damage if I had remembered, and I don't think we actually did. So Exalted Angel, which is probably the only morph card in that deck coming down. And here it looks like we are going to just keep on bouncing those lands. So I'm going to return that tapped land to his hand. Hopefully he doesn't have many more lands that can come into play untapped, setting him even further back from flipping that Exalted Angel. And he takes, I believe, 3 more damage. Yep, that puts him at 8. You think he should have been at 6. I think we missed a trigger before. He takes 2 damage, so we do hit that trigger. He comes in with that morph creature. I take 2 myself. And so here comes the slide. So if he does cycle something, he can slide out that morph creature. It would come back unmorphed. So he will have that 4/5 flying, lifelinking Exalted Angel if that does happen, but that will take an additional turn as it comes into play at the end of the turn then. Boomerang, back that Exalted Angel. Believe I should have just tapped the other island at this point, but I don't think that's actually going to matter, as I don't do anything with that one island. He does take some more damage from that Black Vice. He takes a draw at this point. It might be a little bit too late, as he does need to make his land drops and still play that Exalted Angel, being able to flip it and get that life link. So let's see what exactly happens at this point. Everything is going according to plan. He does have a full grip. I've been able to keep this tempo up of bouncing his permanents, keeping him off his land drops, or returning his land drops, making him take more damage from that Ankh. And right now he's pretty deep in the tank about what he wants to do. Um, he doesn't have any pressure on board, and he does decide to just go with a. Oh no, I thought he was going to go with the. Okay, he goes down to one now, and he goes with the morphed Exalted Angel. Okay, and then I untap. I play another land, which I should take two off of, though at this point it really doesn't matter because here comes the other namesake card, the Tide, and it's pretty much wrapped up at this point. I can remove all of his lands and then have one counter left, um, which I can remove one of my lands. It really does not matter. So that's going to be 8 damage. With the fading, so with the fading, it is during my upkeep. If that counter would be, if a counter cannot be removed, that's when you're going to actually sacrifice that permanent, not when it is out of counters. It's during that upkeep. So I go to remove that untapped source, and he exiles that Exalted Angel, which we know of is under there. And then I move to my next phase. I'm going to remove the rest of his lands. And we come back to it, and he still has more cards in hand. I wasn't even realizing on the Black Vice. And we go to his upkeep, and he's going to then die. But at this point, it wouldn't have mattered if the Exalted Angel came back, because he has too many cards in hand, and that's going to be game one. So game one in the books for Ankh Tide. At this point, we go to sideboard. I know that's going to take a little bit, so I'm going to jump ahead just a minute. Okay, it looks like I have a hand. I do believe I mulligan to 6 on this one, and he leads with a tap Forgotten Cave, and I have an island into a Black Vice again, so that's going to be great. He's going to take a damage. I believe Hito took a mulligan, and he only took 1 that time. Here comes down a Battlefield Forge. I take my draw, hopefully keeping up this tempo, and I'm going to pay 2. Actually, no. I do pass. I think I have a bounce spell, but I also have an Arcane Denial, and I know that the morphed Exalted Angel can come down, or an Astral Slide, and I'd like to keep both those off the table. So I'm going to allow it right now, because I can always bounce a land at the end of his turn. He passes, and like I was talking about, I make that play. I boomerang back one of his lands. I think I choose the Forgotten Cave, as it was a tapped land, and hopefully just making his mana even worse, as he might have to replay that as a tap source next turn. So we untap and we draw. I think I lay another island at this point. Right now, just having a couple counter spells in hand. I think I have a Parallax Tide. Just really trying to keep him off of his actual pressure and keep cards in hand to let this Black Vice do its own work. He does play a Exalted Angel. I do believe I let it go just because I have a Churning Eddy, and we'll see that in just a sec. That allows me to bounce a creature and a land. It's a sorcery that was never really highly played, but man, that is a big tempo swing, as I get to return both of these permanents, setting him back his entire turn. It's almost a time walk. And then that also helps to increase the damage from that Black Vice as I pass the turn. We see him at 17. He's going to take, let's see, the full 3. So yeah, he has 7 cards in hand at this point, and he needs to decide if this Black Vice is worth removing off the table. Now, I think if he just would have replayed the Exalted Angel, I didn't have much to get it off the table, but he decides that the Black Vice is worth removing at this point, and he destroys it with a cleanse. And that is fine. So I'm going to untap, take a quick draw and see what is going on in my hand. I think I have an Ankh. I also have a Parallax Tide that's going to come down. I don't have to remove all of his lands. I know he can't do too much, so I'm going to remove just 2 of them. I'll leave him 1 source for right now. Yeah, I do leave him 1 source. I'm not too worried about him playing things for like 2 mana, so I wanted to utilize it and give myself enough time to try to draw an Ankh as possible. And we see that Forgotten Cave that I bounced a couple turns ago, again slowing him down on that mana progression. I take a draw, think about my turn for a minute, and I pass back to him, beginning to start to port him, going after the sources that can possibly destroy artifacts and enchantments. I think I go after that white source. Let's take a look and see. He's probably debating at this point, does he want to cycle something and take a draw? Let's see. Now I think it's that cleanse again, and that is going to destroy the Parallax Tide. But in response, what I do is that I remove my last 2 lands, so that when it leaves, they'll come into play untapped. And so those little heads up play real quick, I thought. So we're still in the upkeep. I ported the land. He cleansed it. I removed my 2 lands, and then I ported him again. This is all during the upkeep, trying to keep him off of his mana. So keep him off of that double white or that red source as well. And he makes another land drop, which is fine. Okay, I think at this point I had just found the Ankh, and this is where things. Oh, okay, maybe not. Still porting, taking him off of, a double colored source, though he still has 2 plains and 2 red sources. He's going to take a draw at this point. It's a little bit rough for me, as he's starting to develop his mana. He's starting to get cards out of his hand. He tries to play an Aura of Silence, and I annul that, which he does have a red elemental blast for my annul. But then, like I was saying before, I have some arcane denials, I think 2 at this point in my hand, and I arcane denial, hoping to put cards back in his hand in terms of drawing a black vice and working on him that way. That card's been fantastic. It also helps me with a draw. So at beginning my upkeep, I'm going to take a draw from the arcane denial and a draw from my turn. He draws 2 cards, and we see a 2 mana for the. Here we go. Come on, just do it. Put it down. Slam it. Yep. Here comes the Ankh, and then 4 for the Parallax Tide. And here is the namesake thing of what the deck does. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove. So we're going to take a quick look exactly what fading does. So he realizes there was a question. So at the beginning of your upkeep, we're going to remove that fading counter if you can't sacrifice it. So we double check that exact ruling, because he wants to know what happens if he destroys it or if I bounce it. When does it leave? If all the counters are removed, when does it actually leave play? So I remove 5 of his lands. I pass the turn. That should be sacrificed during my upkeep then. He has 1 land. Yep. And we double check again. Yep. Remove a fading counter if you can't sacrifice it. Yep. During your upkeep. So that ruling is done. And if this is wrong, guys, please let me know. So, okay. And this should be toward the end of the game. He is still at 14 life, so there is some work I have to do. I think at this point he doesn't have another land drop, and plus he's going to take more damage if he does. He knows he's going to take 10 during my upkeep. so at this point, I only have 2 cards in hand. And he's thinking about what to do. Does he want to try to make another land drop? He realizes what's about to happen during my upkeep with all of his lands. And I need to figure out what I am going to do. At this point, I believe I have a boomerang, so I can put the fading trigger on the stack during my upkeep to return my Parallax Tide. That will return all of his lands, and then I should be able to recast it, do the same thing again, wait for 1 turn, and then here is during my upkeep that fading is on the stack. I am going to boomerang it back to my hand with that trigger, and then his lands come back. He takes 10. He goes to 4. I take a draw for turn. Here comes that Parallax Tide again. Hopefully he doesn't have another removal for my Ankh or the Parallax Tide. Well, it'd be really just for that Ankh. And I think he sees the writing on the wall. Though it's not going to be good enough. He doesn't have much. He doesn't have any pressure whatsoever, and my deck is doing what it does. He actually cast a Renewed Faith. That's going to let him gain 6 life. That's in response to the Parallax Tide coming into play. 5 counters. Again, I remove. Going to remove 5 of his lands. I remove the 3 light sources, and those 2 leave him with 1, as those will come into play tap then. He untaps with just a red source. He doesn't right now have a way to get rid of the Ankh. If he could possibly play a land and maybe destroy the Ankh. During my upkeep, I can't remove a counter. The trigger goes off. His lands come back. Does he have anything with a trigger on the stack? He tries to play another Renewed Faith, but again, I have a Arcane Denial, and that is going to be the game. So right there, Ankh Tide doing its thing. If you guys like this kind of play, I always have some more decks. I love playing some fun stuff like this. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Thank you very much. If you can, like, subscribe, and comment.